All right, everybody, what's going on? I am Kyle Scott from Crossing Broad. This is going to be the first in our series of sports betting videos. We're going to cover a little bit of everything. We're going to talk about updates on the industry. We're going to talk about trends, where it's legal, how you can bet. We're going to review some of the legal betting options. To be clear, legal betting options. We're not focusing on the offshore sites. There's a whole industry dedicated to those, and now that everything's legal, they're going to become increasingly shady. We expect the legalization of this to take sports betting fully mainstream. So since we're recording this today, it's June 10th. Since the Supreme Court's ruling last month, two states have really moved in earnest to legalize sports betting, Delaware and New Jersey. It is legal now in Delaware at 3 locations, only racetracks and casinos. It has not yet been legalized online. Expect that to come soon, perhaps sometime this summer, but we don't know for sure. There's really nothing in the bill. New Jersey, on the other hand, has just approved the bill that will make sports gambling legal both in-person, casino-based, and online. They're just waiting for Governor Phil Murphy to sign it into law. It literally could be any day now. It could be Monday morning. This is a Saturday. It could be first thing Monday morning. So it is coming. So we're going to cover all of that here, all those updates, but really talk about trends. One of the biggest things right now is I think people are overlooking the opportunity, not only for online betting in general, but for prop bets and real-time bets. So you have to look at a market where betting is already legal. Betting on sports is already legal. Look at Europe. Tons of betting on soccer matches. There's kiosks all over London. You can bet in stadium and now certainly on your phone. A big part of that is real-time betting. In fact, up to like 70% of the bets on European soccer in Europe are on either real-time or prop bets. Might even be higher than that. I forget where I read it, but don't quote me on the number, but it's something like that. The point is, when we think of betting here in the U.S., we think of the line, we think of the spread, we think of money line, over, under, all things that are determined ahead of time by very smart sports books who are trying to get equal weight on both sides so they can essentially take their 10% cut, the VIG, as you would call it. That is an old model. Think about newspapers for a second, and just bear with me here. How the news cycle revolved around a newspaper getting printed at, say, 2 a.m. or 12:30 a.m. So a sports writer or any writer might say they were on deadline, meaning they had to get something in by about midnight to make the press for the next morning. News cycles were built around this. Press releases, news dumps, all things to channel into this. Okay, we have this is going to be ready for the next 24 hours and it has to be evergreen for that time. Sports betting has kind of been like that. You're restricted to lines and whatever, going back to the old days of the bookie or making a bet at a casino where you will have the betting leading up to the game and then betting stops and then whatever, you wait 3 hours till the end of the game and then that's how you're paid out. Think about fantasy baseball for a second, or it used to be called rotisserie baseball. What was that? That's how fantasy sports got started. Rotisserie baseball, I used to play it when I was like 8. Was a season-long league where you would pick your players, and yes, you could trade, but it was all a manual process. You'd have to call the league commissioner. They would write it down. Whether you picked up that player's stats from the beginning of the year, from that point forward, really depended on how much work someone was willing to do. And you took a team, and then your stats at the end of the year, you were ranked from 1 to 10, or however many people were in your league, and whoever had the lowest number, kind of like golf, won total. Well, that was because we didn't have online. There was no way to kind of efficiently measure those numbers or do it on a more narrow interval. So fast forward a few years, the internet comes along, and now we're able to do more traditional fantasy sports. Think week-by-week football leagues where you could sign up for Yahoo or ESPN and put in your team. You can trade, but now you can go head-to-head against other people on a weekly basis. The internet enabled that. Now, fast forward a few more years, and you're at daily fantasy sports. So now you've compressed a season into a week. Now it's into a day, and on DraftKings, you can play by one time slot. You can play just the 4 o'clock games or just the 2 late games in the NBA. So we've compressed the season into a 2-hour window. Well, it's going to go further with sports betting because now you can do real-time prop bets. Who hits the first three-pointer of the game? Who hits the next three-pointer? Who comes out and gets the next turnover or the next goal? Those are the sorts of recreational fun things that the average Joe will be willing to wager on. because the lines are so hammered into place and they make it so difficult to really get an edge when you're betting the point spread or the money line. Not so much the money line. That's about how much you're risking. But the point spread or the over-under. Those things are kind of, the deck is stacked against the ordinary guy. Even the non-ordinary guy, if he wins 58, 60% of the time, he's like one of the best ever. Whereas a prop bet's more fun. It's easy to throw $5 on who's going to score the next goal. You don't lose your hat, and if he scores it, you win maybe $20. It's a good, fun bet. That, I think, will be the future of fantasy sports, and no one's really talking about how that's going to impact the game. You hear all this hand-wringing about how ESPN is going to cover betting now, and how it's going to be involved in the broadcast, and how you're going to see lines. That's definitely going to happen. It might take a little time. 2 or 3 states legalizing sports gambling is not going to have your whole Sunday night football coverage, other than Al Michaels maybe now outward mentioning the line. But the prop bet is really, I don't think, something people are focusing on and don't realize how big of a part of the experience it's going to be. Think about when you're watching a sporting event now. You're probably on social media, you're probably on Facebook, or more likely Twitter, perhaps Instagram, Snapchat, texting with your friends, whatever it is. That sort of real-time back and forth. Twitter is great for this. You see highlights, GIFs as they happen. Think of betting in that regard, where you can see something that happened, have a thought, and instead of turning to your buddy and say, he's going to go yard here, you could press a button and say, he's going to go yard here, and I'll put $5 on it. Okay, think about how easy it is on DraftKings. From my couch, from my phone, with the press of my thumb, I can wager $1,000 on a game of skill where I'm choosing a team for that afternoon. Think about how far we've come from someone manually writing down season-long stats to now with the press of the thumb putting $1,000 on an afternoon or even more. Okay, is it dangerous? Yes. But that is only going to continue to get compressed into these microtransactions. And I think that's going to pervade all of sports coverage in a way that you haven't seen, where perhaps those things are listed like a real-time ticker or like a rundown. This is the way you keep people involved in the game. Because think about it. If you bet on the point spread, say you take the Packers at +7. Say they're getting blown out by 28 points and there's 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Even though gambling will keep people locked into a game, there's still situations where even the spread's out of line or the over-under has just been blown away and there's no more suspense. At some point in the fourth quarter, with the exception of maybe a quarter of the games or the last minute, all those things are blown out. Well, now with prop bets, it's in perpetuity. You're always going to have those opportunities. So I think the leagues will embrace it. I think coverage will embrace it. And honestly, I think that might be the most fun way to do this. That's something people aren't talking about. And I think right now, all the gambling tools you see out there, I forget about the charlatans who are selling you picks, more on those in a second. But you're seeing gambling tools focused on the line and the spread. Well, why? Because they're writing content, they're doing deep dives, they're giving you analytics leading up to it in a night's event. Where it's really going to be interesting is seeing some of these tools that enable you to take advantage of these prop bets, whether it's ahead of time or even in real time. And all that stuff, guys aren't going to have the opportunity to put together a 500-word article making their case for Steph Curry hitting the next three-pointer. It's going to be algorithm-based. It's going to be math-based. And I think there's going to be tools coming out like that. Monster Roster, based here in Philadelphia. They're actually in the Sixers incubator. They're one of 4 companies the Sixers have brought in to work with to help gestate them. They started as a daily fantasy recommendation site, and now they are, I believe, moving into sports betting, specifically prop bets. They're algorithm-based, and that sort of thing will become key. And I'm sure there'll be many other companies who do this and a lot of coverage around this. So just something to consider as you're thinking and talking about sports betting. Don't think, if you don't understand the line or the over-under, that's fine. You should. And there's a lot of merit for it. I think it helps evaluate teams as much as it does actually, as much fun as it is to actually bet. I think it kind of gives you an idea. If you think your team is a favorite and you find out they're a 4-point underdog for a game, maybe that has you reevaluate your mindset for a game. I think there's a lot of importance there. But people are not talking about the implications of real-time prop betting from your device. Right now, everything seems to be centered around casinos and when can I go to the sports book and when can does this mean I can't talk to my bookie at the corner bar, whatever it is. People are talking about online betting, but I don't think, unless you've seen the way it is in Europe or are familiar with the way it is in Europe, how big of a deal it will be to play small microtransactions, probably limited bets. The sportsbook's probably not going to take a 20 grand bet on Steph Curry hitting the next three. You might be capped off at $20, but honestly, that's better for society, and it's more fun, and it adds to the entertainment value. And you could still load up on the over or load up on +7. But I think it's going to be those microtransactions to get the common Joe and to really kind of change the way we watch sports. So just some thoughts on real-time and prop betting. Keep it tuned here to our channel. Subscribe down below up here. I don't know what device you're watching on. Wherever the subscribe button is, hit it. Go to crossingbroad.com. Hit the sports betting link up at the top. We're going to have all sorts of commentary. To be clear, we are not selling you picks. Those guys are full of shit. They're charlatans. No locks, no units, none of that bullshit, because the truth is nobody knows. Lines are so perfectly put into place that even the smartest sports guy doesn't really know who's going to win. Okay? If he goes on a little bit of a heater, maybe he takes 8 out of 2 for the next 10 games, and then he loses 8 out of the next 10. That's not what we're here for. I think there's going to be a lot, we're going to have a lot of commentary on the gambling industry, but we're also going to talk about trends and analytics. Those things are real. It's tough to beat the house, but you can be successful with the right amount of data. More importantly, it's about like gamesmanship and game theory more than anything. You can know as much there is in the world to know about the Cleveland Cavaliers, but guess what? Vegas knows more than you, or the sportsbook knows more than you. However, if you understand the game theory and where you're maybe getting a little value in the line or in the odds, or where the payout is a little bit higher and you can calculate your risk reward, that's where you can be successful. So those are the sorts of things we're going to talk about on here. No bullshit. And of course, we're going to review and talk about and list all the legal sites as they come out. This is a very kind of messy, convoluted, state-by-state issue. You have people like DraftKings partnering with resorts, because in New Jersey, the casinos have to back a gambling entity, but they can use a third-party platform like DraftKings. So it'll be really interesting. William Hill is entering this market. So you'll see different apps and sites, I think, in different states. And I think you'll see different types of games and props and all that stuff. So we're going to be here to talk about it, review the best sites, point you in their direction, but also just talk about the whole gambling movement in general. So you can hit subscribe, go to crossingbroad.com, hit the sports betting thing, sign up for our email list. We won't spam you, no picks. We're not trying to get you to buy anything from us. Occasionally, we may refer you to one of these new gambling apps or a tool or bring something to your attention. That's how we might make some money out of this, but we are not here to sell you picks. To be clear, we are just trying to provide a service and some commentary. So thanks for listening. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you like what you see. Like it, leave a comment. We'll be very active monitoring the comments on these sports betting videos. So thanks for watching.